Um, okay, so today we have a lecture in diversity, leading the way. And before I start, we need to set a few ground rules. First of all, diversity is not as easy as it sounds. It's not something that we have a definition and everybody accepts and that's it. In fact, there are loads of ongoing debates without the government about the extent of diversity's inclusiveness within the public bodies. So it is not, and even the courts have added to it by having some trials and some legal proceedings in regards to diversity. Let me tell you, so you may have a very different view of diversity of what I may actually say today, but that is fine. Actually, that is what diversity is all about. And I'm sure that there's not going to be any problems, or you're not going to start throwing eggs or anything like that at me. Hopefully no. And let me tell you what this presentation is not. This is not about telling you what diversity is and saying, well, what you know about diversity is wrong, change your mind, forget about it, and this is it. This is what you should do, this is how you should do it, and this is diversity. Not at all. This is not about right or wrong or criticizing any views on diversity. What it is about gaining a deeper understanding about what diversity is as derived from the Declaration of the Human Rights, where actually the public agencies base diversity on. And see how this way the diversity is actually extracted from the human rights, and the legislation is on the human rights, how actually affects all the public agencies and how it affects the way that the public agencies are run nowadays in our modern Britain here. And this should actually make us think like, well, if a public agency runs like that within in diversity and it understands diversity like this, shouldn't we, Christians, actually go even one step ahead of that? Should we let them lead the way, or should we lead the way? But just before we start, I must add that these views are mine alone. So if you completely disagree with me, that is completely fine. And that's why welcome to the diversity lecture. Now, you may say, well, okay, what authority do you have to speak to us about diversity? Are you a lecturer in diversity? Do you have studies on diversity? Well, you may know me as Mike was saying, I've been here forever, I'm part of the furniture now. And you may say, well, you are the kind of bloke that been here, live in Bracknell, been here like 20 years, and you still have a strong accent. So how are you going to teach us in diversity? Well, two things. First of all, Helen Pearson asked me. And you know, when Helen asks, you don't say no. So that's it, I'm here for that. The second is actually my background. As you know, I'm a police officer, which means that I've been trained and I have gained a lot of experience in about diversity and how to treat the public in that way. And also my academic education. As Mike Pearson was saying, my background is actually theology, my academic background. Well, I am a police officer, specialized in investigation of domestic abuse, child protection, and vulnerable adults for Surrey Police, which means that I deal with the public every day, day in and day out. But regardless of where within the police you work, the moment that you actually are offered the job and you enter into training school, you are shown what diversity is. Every single area that covers policing has a diversity essence to it. In fact, diversity is so important within the police that there is no promotion board, or if you want to change jobs inside the police to another unit or to another area of policing, that you don't get one question on diversity. And in order to pass the promotion or to get the job, you will have to answer that question according to the views of diversity within the police. And then, on the other hand, most of my background is in theology, not only here in Newbold, but also outside. So it is normal that for me all the things that I learned, and let me refer to the outside world as the secular world, is transferred into my religious or spiritual world, and vice versa. It is normal that I try to make sense of what I read in my Bible, my scripture, with what actually I'm taught outside. So, and this is not actually to choose between one or the other and to say, well, actually this is better than the other one. No, on the contrary, it's actually to do this, as in Thessalonians says, to actually learn about everything, examine all things, and retain what is good. So I have seen how much emphasis the public agencies such as the police puts on diversity. They spend, within the government, they spend hours and hours and months. There are units and part of the government studying and actually researching about diversity and how to apply it in legislation and how to do and how to actually transfer it to the public agencies. So I wonder if it is so important for a public agency and for the government to show diversity and to apply diversity, shouldn't actually we, people who are said to be followers of God, servants of the Almighty and servants to His creation, apply so much importance also to diversity? Let me just now, before we go on, let me just start with a little bit with where diversity, this diversity that we're saying that the public agencies put so much emphasis on, come from. And as I said a little bit at the beginning, they come from the human rights. And we need to actually look a little bit about the human rights. Just and I have chosen a few human rights. There are 30 in total, the general principles, and I have chosen a few that I think are most relevant here for our topic of diversity. But the human rights as we know them today, well, human rights have been evolving forever, even since the first many centuries, a millennium ago, when the Romans started actually giving extra benefit, extra rights to Roman citizens. All this evolved, and we have a few past history on Magna Carta and the French Revolution with égalité, fraternité, equalité, and also as well with the abolition of slavery, etc., etc. But the human rights as we know them today, they didn't come into place until after the Second World War, and actually to remedy what had happened in the Second World War with the Nazi regime. And they were signed in 1948 in Paris. And as I said, I have chosen a few that we're going to go quickly through them, but to see that whether we like them or not, and what it means for us. Article 1, it says, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience, and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Article 2, it says, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under any limitation of sovereignty. Article 3 says everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. Article 5, and as I said, I jump a few in order I just picked the ones that I think they were more relevant for us today. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Article 6, everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. Article 12, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, not to attract upon his honor or reputation, attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. And I want you actually to pay attention to that. Nor to attacks upon his honor or reputation. So it's not only about attacking in a violent way or in an abusive way, but also not attacks upon his honor or reputation. Article 18, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. You know, and when we read these human rights, as we have seen a few of them, we actually agree with them, don't we? We say we are here today because of them. And we are free to do, and actually we like the part that says, actually I am free to manifest my religion and my belief, and to do actually, you know, to be able to talk about it without being punished. But there are other articles, like Article 16, where us as Christians may find a little bit more, well, you know, down to interpretation. And we may not agree completely with them in some areas. Men and women of full age, without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at its dissolution. Marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of intending spouses. Sometimes these rights have been used to give freedom of marriage to everybody. But sometimes we may think that that may clash with some other areas of our understanding. You know, but the declaration is not actually legislation. The declaration is just something that the governments have decided, yeah, I'm going to join it, and I'm going to say, yeah, that's fine. That has to be passed into the legislation by every single government. And here we have the Human Rights Act of 1998. And it says, in those rights, it says that all public authorities must abide by the human rights. And it defines a public authority as a court or tribunal and any person certain of whose functions are functions of a public nature. And there is a little bit of wrangling about that. How far does it go? A subcontract that, for example, any of the public authorities have, like transport of prisoners, for example, talking from police side of things. Is it covered by it? Is it a public authority? Is it really one? Should it apply the same one? So there is a little bit of regular wrangling about what a public authority is. But I summarize it saying, especially on the last one, on the B, saying any person certain of whose functions are functions of a public nature. Anybody who serves the public can be considered to be a public authority. So, and anybody who actually is considered to be a public authority, it says that it is the Human Rights Act says that it is actually unlawful to discriminate directly or indirectly. For those of you, just let me explain a little bit about directly. For example, if they said this job, nobody can apply for this job, and now nobody who's Spanish can apply for this job, they would be directly discriminating against me. If they said, well, you know, indirectly would be, for example, well, no one that is less than 180 in height or 6 foot can actually apply for this job. So that means that I wouldn't be able to apply for that job. And it says that there is an obligation by the public authority to eliminate discrimination and duty to promote equality. Duty to promote equality. And this is the most important obligations that the public agencies have. Let me just put it back. This is the most important obligations: unlawful to discriminate, obligation to eliminate, and duty to promote equality. But this is not only from the public agencies. We have a lot of more legislation, as you know, the Discrimination Act, the Equality Pay Act, etc., etc. Actually, it goes further and it says to the agents, to all the business and companies, you need to not only do this from the point of view of the public agencies, but you need to do it yourself. And if you don't, you need to have a very, very good reason not to do it. So public business, public and private business and companies have huge HR departments looking into this legislation and applying it. That's one of the reasons why we have, rights like equality pay rights. And any company who doesn't do it need to justify why they don't do it, with the danger of being taken to court and sued by the individual. So my question, one of the questions that I have is for all of us here today is, although our church is not per se a public agency, it's not paid by the government in any way, shape or form, it's paid by the individuals, don't we provide a public service? Should we not be considered to be ourselves under the human rights and to try to apply diversity in the same way as the public agencies do? Well, let's have a look at what diversity really means. Diversity means difference, okay? And this is where it gets the best, because actually diversity means that having the same rights as anybody else, but being treated differently. What do I mean by differently? Well, being treated as an individual. That means that they look at you and they understand your differences, they understand your weakness and strengths, and what is supposed to be is that diversity will apply all these rights according to your needs and expectations. So it's not everybody treated the same or equally, it's everybody treated as they want to be treated and as they deserve to be treated as individuals. Now, there is not a fixed, as I said at the beginning, there is not a fixed definition of diversity. Every company, if you research the internet, every company will have a very different definition. Most of the universities will also have a definition of diversity. But more or less, all of them will include some of these, or all of these words: acceptance, respect, understanding, tolerance, inclusion, I like that one, inclusion, equality, and impartiality. You will have either one or all. Because diversity, after all, is about valuing the differences between individuals. I know we are different, but that is good. And we like that. Promoting an environment where all these differences are embraced, are celebrated. Difference is good. And we will see in a second why public agencies think that is good. Recognizing individuality in all of the spheres of human life. In all of the spheres of human life. And that is diversity within the public agencies. In all spheres of human life. Race, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, political beliefs. Now, and you're going to think, why so important? Why is diversity so important for the public agencies? Is it because it's a right? Is it because it's the right thing to do? Is the moral thing to do? Well, yes. It is the right thing to do, and it's the moral thing to do. And in fact, we, Christians, followers of God, we should do it just because it's the right thing to do. But actually there is another dimension that they see it. As with the secular world, it's not always about doing the right thing or the moral thing. It's also about a business case. And within the secular world, they think diversity makes a lot of sense business-wise. This is because diversity not only tolerates, but also embraces and values difference and invites different skills, attitudes, experiences, which will undoubtedly bring fresh ideas and perceptions. For example, within the police, we believe that that in an environment where everybody, however they are, feel valued and feel embraced, they will actually give the best of themselves. You know, the National Center for Volunteering states that by embracing diversity, any organization is able to listen to, meet the changing needs of its users, customers, volunteers, staff, partners, and supporters. So we embrace diversity, and actually they seem to make more money. Let me give you an example within the police. You know, the first time I joined a long time ago, and it was I didn't set out to join the police because I wanted to. It was just I fell into it by chance, or call it whatever you want. But I remember that one of the first times I went out on patrol, and actually I went to a house. We had to see an offender that we were managing, and the landlord was there. We had assisted him to find a house, and the landlord was there, and he actually was a very tall man and elderly gentleman, but very strong, still well kept and big. And he looked at me, and it was like around, well, his shoulder was around here. And he looked at me and said, "Are you a police officer, or are you staff?" And I said, no, I'm a police officer. And he looked at me and said, like, "Oh, in my times, police officers were very big and very huge." And I thought, like, well, thank you for that. I feel a lot better now. And I remember, well, yeah, I mean, some of my colleagues, and especially the old generation, they are like mountains, they are tanks. And now everybody seems to be able to get into the police. And you think, well, yeah, if I want somebody to defend me, would I want this guy? Really? Really? And this actually came home when I went once with my sergeant, who was a lady who was this tall. And there was a call for a domestic incident in progress. And we were the closest, so we actually decided to attend, because we were just next. Usually it's the officers who go in uniform with all the kit around, with all the stuff that they carry. Normally in domestic abuse, we go in plain clothes, and we don't carry much stuff, so not to alert neighbors or anything of what's happening in that house. But we were so close that we thought, well, let's go there. So we got there, and we got in, my sergeant and myself, and we got into the house. So what's the problem? Well, he's going crazy. The lady says he's going crazy. He took the TV. We saw the TV actually outside, smashed in the garden. And we could hear somebody upstairs like making some noise. And I said to her, "Okay, where is the gentleman?" And she says, "Upstairs." And I said, "Okay, and what's his name?" And he says, "Let's call him John." I said, "Okay," well, and I was going to call John, and she stopped me and says, she looked at me upside down. She looked at my sergeant and said, "You're going to call for backup, are you not?" And I am like, well, not really. I mean, I was thinking I could be Superman for all she knows. Anyway, so I said, "John, could you come down?" And I hear like these stomping noises. And this huge gentleman came down with all the tattoos around. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating, his arm was actually one of my thighs. And I saw him and I was thinking like, right, okay. I said, "John, can we have a word?" And he was like, "Well, if you're he was just, if you try to arrest me, I'm gonna kick off." And I said, well, let's have a word. Let's have a word. So we went to the sitting room, and I started talking to him and said, "Look, well, you know what's going on here." "Well, I didn't cause any damage. The TV was mine." No. I said, okay. We're just trying to make sure, because obviously it's been reported and it's. And I managed to calm him down. And I think one of the things he calmed down is because he didn't see me as a threat at all. And I didn't actually I actually didn't go up to his level. I actually stayed below his level because I knew that he could actually squash me just with his toe or with his thumb, literally. So I thought, okay. And suddenly, I mean, out of the room from outside came one of these officers, response officers with all the kit and all the gear. And this was again a huge gentleman. And he came in and said, like, everything all right? And the moment that this officer got in, the other guy just got up, squared up, and just went, just ready to go. And I said to the officer, I got in the middle, said to the officer, yeah, everything is fine, you can leave, everything is fine, if we need you, we'll call you. And he left. So I talked to the gentleman, and my sergeant talked to the female partner. And we managed to calm down the situation and resolve it. And it was in there where actually everything that I had been trained about diversity came into place. I mean, it was that skill that I knew, that I didn't have the strength, I didn't have actually the power, and I wasn't up to the level of that guy in a physical fight. But because I knew that, and he knew that, we could actually bring it to a different level. And this is actually what diversity is. It makes sense because it brings different attitudes and different ways. While before, and I'm talking about police because it's what I know the most, while before policing was all about strength, now there are different levels. Strength is needed, but sometimes you can use other tools, not necessarily always violence. And the truth is that we like diversity. Yeah? Actually, we are here because of diversity. Do we really think that it is good? Come on, do we think it is good? Yes. Yeah? But it is thanks to our government putting all those human rights acts and actually forcing the public agencies to put diversity into place that we are where we are here today. And it is because of that that we are actually free here to express that we believe in God. Actually, to be able to have a worship every Sabbath. Even though many people have it on Sunday, we, Adventists here in the college, we can have it on Saturday, and nobody will say anything. Other people, such as the Islam, the Muslims, will have it on Friday. And that is okay. And even at the end of the lecture, we're going to have questions. And you may think that's completely what I said here is completely rubbish, but that is okay. Because that is diversity. And it's not going to be any problems. We even have diversity in Newell Church vision, mission, and values. Actually, we have it for this year. And it is diversity to be a true reflection of what God's kingdom looks like. And we do like diversity, especially when it comes to our rights, isn't it? I have the right to gather together and to believe in what I believe and to express it. But when it comes to the rights of others, that is when there is a little bit of a clash sometimes. Especially when we enter into the religious realm. Because let's face it, the most powerful religions in history, including Christianity, have a very, very poor record on diversity. I mean, we only have to go to establish of Christianity as a religion with power, that we can see that those who belonged to the mainstream Christianity majority had views on those on the fringes that were neither fraternal nor loving. Actually, in fact, using a term coined by Kenneth L. Pike, we use the term insiders and outsiders to refer to many people within our religious environment. And when it comes to insiders and outsiders, we know that Christianity, insiders, have in the past persecuted really heavily to those, first of all, not only outsiders such as Muslims during the Crusades, but also to those who are just outsiders because of doctrinal differences, such as in the case of the Protestants during the Protestant movement. But it's not only within Christianity. We know that with any religion, once it has a little bit of power, a political power we're talking, then things, the religion who actually has the power will only perpetuate this intra and interreligious domination. Whenever we see a particular version of any religion being supported by a government as the official religion, we also see individuals being compelled to follow that religion. We actually see being banned from congregating if he's not within that religion, and even punished for following a different religion. And it's not only between religions such as huge religions such as, for example, Christianity and Islam and Judaism. It's not only between the main religions, but within the very religions themselves as well. And we see it now on the news between all the wars that are having in the Middle East because of Sunnis and Shias, and they all belong to the same religion. And we think, yeah, I know, you're going to say, yeah, but that is happening in the Middle East, really. I mean, that is just a little bit crazy. And yeah, it happened to us during the Crusades, but now here in England today is different. It's not really what is happening here, is it? Well, I don't think that today here, Christianity here in the UK at this very moment, it is my personal view that I don't think we embraced diversity as well as the public agencies tried to do. In fact, it's not hard still to perceive the difference between insiders and outsiders within our own Christianity. Now, insiders of a Christian denomination would often dismiss the views of others. You only need to move a little bit and have a conversation with any other of the other denominations, such as Jehovah's Witnesses, the Church of the Latter-day Saints. Thank you. And you will see that one of the things that comes very often, even with us, is, we have the truth. We have the truth. But the problem that this represents is that the moment that I say I have the truth, it means that anybody else will not. Which means at that moment, I am an insider of the truth and all the rest are outsiders. And that's that. And also, the other problem that this represents is that the moment that I say I have the truth, and you join me, I give you the power to say, you can say then again, I have the truth too. Even though you may not even research that truth, and you may not even validate that truth for yourself. But it has given you the monopoly of saying, hey, I have the truth. We have the truth. I don't know really what the truth is, but we have it, so all the rest are wrong. And the problem is, as the writer Robert Merton, that the problem resides in that the list of insider claims to a monopoly of knowledge becomes indefinitely expansible. In other words, where does it end? It doesn't end. Because we all claim that we have the truth, and the other one then obviously is wrong. But let me ask you something. Even if we had the truth, just imagine that, just for the argument's sake, let's say that we do have the truth here. Let's say that, because we are in New World College, let's say that the Adventists have the truth. As I said, just for argument's sake. Would this fact give us the right to force down the throats of others who did not believe like us? What we believe? Do we actually call that diversity? Can we actually say that that is diversity? And let's take it even a little bit further. If we have the truth, would that give us the right to treat those who will not want to accept our truth unequally in the distribution of liberties and other valuable resources? Since I have the truth and you don't want to accept it, why am I going to help you? Do we have the right? Would we have the right? I mean, we keep forgetting that actually, that God has given us the freedom to choose. And even in our society today, there are people who want nothing to do with God and will not use the word God, will not believe in God, and actually may try to sell to others that there is no God. But God tolerates those people, don't they? He actually makes rain and sun to fall upon them, the same as those who believe in Him. He seems to bless them in very similar ways as He blesses us. So what rights does He give us to think that we are above God and not to tolerate others? And diversity within the religious context is even worse when it comes to social choices, accepting social choices. We can certainly tolerate, to some levels, Christians who actually, they do not believe like us, and their theology may be a little bit dodgy, but, let's face it, they're a bit confused, so poor people. So, go ahead, I'll put my arm around you, and I say maybe one day you will receive the light. But when it comes to acceptance and tolerance in regards to chosen sinful lifestyles, we consider sinful lifestyles, then it's a lot harder. Because we get the impression that not all sins are equal, even though the Bible says that they're all equal, all goes against God. The reality, I think, my view is that we sometimes consider some sins more polluting than others. We can accept weaknesses, pride, a little bit of arrogance, the person, just be tolerant, accepting, even petty thievery. Sometimes, it's a bit of a shoplift, he's going through a tough time. But when it comes to certain sins, that tolerance makes us feel that we are condoning the sin and make us feel like we are being contaminated. Even though Jesus lived among people who had very wrongful lifestyle choices. And even though we are told that there is no righteous, not even one. And I wonder if this is the reality, if this is the reason why in our society religion is powerless. Because after so many years, people have started to think, well, you know what? Everybody has the truth. Everybody kill each other. There is no tolerance. Let's forget about it. Let's be secular and let's apply secular principles to everybody and let's forget about religion. And maybe this is the reason why religion is deposed of any political power. Maybe that is the reason because we are happier with the secular government actually imposing human rights to all of us in an equal way than actually any of the religions within the UK determining what rights we do have or we don't. One of the examples that we see is author Raji Barjaba asserts in his article, States, Religious Diversity and the Crisis of Secularism. He says that in Britain, a third of all primary school children are educated by religious communities. Yet applications for state funding of Muslim schools are frequently turned down. And it's not too difficult to know why. I mean, we just had in the news about in Birmingham all these schools that we saw that, there is some dodgy things going on there. So probably all schools that are taught by religious minorities, or majorities for that matter, have something dodgy going on. So that's why probably is why the public agencies and the government, the secular government, is actually leading the way so far on diversity. But we like diversity, as we said. We enjoy the freedom that it gives us. We like to know that our rights are protected. But it seems that only the secular government at the moment is able to achieve some kind of equality and freedom for all. But is that right? Is it really right? How is this possible? If diversity is good and worth embracing, and we think that it should be like that, and those rights, I like those rights because it gives me the freedom to do what I need to do and even to serve the Lord. So if it is good, is not diversity something that comes from God? Does not the Bible say that everything good comes from God? Or is it that maybe pushing diversity in our agenda, we run the risk of being contaminated with certain things that we rather not risk to get into? So we allow the secular government, well, after all, if the government makes a mistake, well, it's a secular government, we can just beg. But, coming from the Christian side or the religious side, that is different. So let the government deal with that, and we just enjoy the benefits. I personally believe that it should be us, the church, who should be leading the way and the world in diversity. Our churches should be the centers where all we have seen before, all that is happening. No exceptions. All that our churches are testimony of those words. And all those words are embraced and cultivated. And not because we are trying to convert anybody, but because that is the right thing to do. Not because we want them to say, come over, and I'll treat you like this, but because sooner or later you will become one of us. Not because you will become one of us, but because you are an individual and you deserve to be treated like this, like I like to be treated like that. And until we are able to do that, I think that our God may continue to take away the privilege to lead the world on issues such as diversity, and give this privilege to what seems to be the least unlikely candidate, our secular society. And you may wonder why God would do that. Well, I think it's my opinion that I think it is to show us, as he did in history of mankind, that if we are not at the very forefront as his humble servants, showing that tolerance and acceptance and inclusiveness, which are characteristics of his love. He will use other people to show us that he can bring children, his children, to do his will, even from the most unlikely candidates. That he can bring his children even from rocks, if we are not to lead the way. Thank you.